Hello, welcome to the National Benevolent Association's 2022 SENT seminar, Imagine a Response theme. This session is called Developing Your Mission and Voice, and I'm Julie Truong, founder of Leadership Savvy. So today's session is really going to help us think about targeting and honing what it is that we do, being able to better communicate it, align goals, and get everyone that we work with on board. So diverse, different stakeholders, and really as a collective, be a voice to promote your cause and the good work that you are doing. So you will learn specific tips and actions to be able to empower your community to really accelerate your goals to meet your mission. So I'm going to share screen now so that you can refer to the slides that I have prepared. Here they are. So glad that you're joining us here today. That is my contact info below if you'd like to learn more about me. And so today what we'll cover is, first of all, we'll talk about what mission alignment is. Because really developing your mission is not just so you have a fun, easy mission statement, but there's a reason to have a mission statement. And so it's all about mission alignment. The good, the bad, the ugly, we can always go back to our mission to understand how we can all get back on track towards the same goals and really reach what we're trying to accomplish together. And so there's three frameworks that I'd like to walk with you through, and that is people, purpose, and process. We'll talk about tools for success for each of them. And then we'll have specific tips on how to take all of those really clarifying mission moments, right? Clarity in people and purpose and process, all aligned towards your mission, and amplifying that message to external stakeholders, but also don't forget internal stakeholders, and really get even more maximized results by really utilizing your voice and sharing what you're doing. So all of that will culminate in hopefully some clear takeaways, actionable steps from the seminar. So why I'm here with you today is I've been working in the nonprofit social benefit community for 20 years. I started more working with youth programs, community-based arts, ethnic organizations, then moved into health collaborations, which included collaborations with education, government agencies, even for-profit businesses, and different faith organizations. So it's been a very diverse experience. I've loved being able to work cross-sectorally and with multiple organizations, many times in partnership to be able to accomplish more together. And so I just wanted to share with you that I've been in your shoes, right? I've managed programs, managed organizations, and I've also really been fortunate to be able to manage large partnership efforts, sometimes within an organization and sometimes with external stakeholders. So one of them is with 100 different partners that came together to really reform a public school district's educational system. And we were able to do that with fellow community members and actually really redesign what we wanted our whole community to look like. So I did that in the state of Minnesota with the school district called Brooklyn Center. It was one of the highlights of my career, but it allowed me to experience what it was like to work with many different agencies and stakeholders and create management tools. So I'll share some of those with you today. I later, in my second half of my career, dove into leadership development. So I was able to host conferences and really try to understand what we as nonprofit professionals need to be able to do our jobs better. And so through those conferences, through trainings, through hosting programs where you could earn different types of leadership certificates, it's been really fantastic to meet so many amazing professionals and be able to help them along their career journey. And so from them, it just made sense for me to work in a recruiting space and help those wonderful candidates and professionals into organizations that were looking for their next leader. But today I am 3 years into having my own consulting firm. And so I've been writing the new chapter of being a sole entrepreneur and more of a boutique firm. So I get to work with different consultants and organizations. And again, with that lens of we're in this together. So just wanted to let you know a little bit about me so you can see the different types of experience that I bring to the seminar today. If anything piqued your interest, at the very last slide, I have my contact information and would love to connect with you to share more and learn more about the work that you are doing as well. So why did we talk about developing your mission and your voice? Again, that is because it's all about alignment. When things are going well, when our programs are providing quality services and really changing lives, it's because we have a very clear mission and people are all working towards the same mission. Our resources can be aligned. One thing I wanted to clarify is the mission is what you do, right? And that the vision is what you will achieve in the long term. So a lot of people are wondering about the distinction between the two. And so the vision is usually that 5, 10, 20, even 30-year plan. That plan that and if everything were to come to fruition, how would the world be different because you exist or because you and the sector exists? What is that ultimate future vision? So that's your vision. The mission is what is your organization's unique role in doing this work? So what is it that you specifically are going to set up the organization to do well? What particular piece of this puzzle are you going to play? And so I wanted to make that distinction. Hopefully that helps understand the difference between mission and vision. And so in the seminar today, we will talk about some real-time tools to help you get that vision, the mission alignment to help you get towards that ultimate vision achievement, right? So visions are sometimes painted very broadly, very hard to conceptualize and to grasp. How are we going to get there? That seems like a huge, unwieldy goal. But in your mission, you should be able to distill that into, this is what we are doing. This is our unique role to make that happen. And so we will walk through purpose, people, and process to make sure that we are all working towards that same mission and help you get to success, maybe faster, but usually better as well. So a couple things that when I see these things, when they are truly in alignment, why this topic is so exciting is that we do go farther together, right? Whether we're talking about you and your small, mid, or large organization, it might be a small group of people, a team, a group of volunteers, right? All of us are working with different types of organization, different types of teams. Some of us are working with larger institutions, or maybe we're overseeing a collaborative where it's multiple institutions. And then you might even have folks here who are thinking more further out, like in terms of policy and sectoral best practices, right? So, but in the end, if whoever we're working with and we're able to manage them and lead them with this aligned vision, you start to see a magic that happens. That when people have clarity on where we're going and how we're going to get there, there's this, oh yeah, we get it, let's go. And people can then run and do their job and whatever they are responsible for very well. And there's this momentum that starts to grow. I call it a ripple effect because good work, brings on more good work and people see it, they see the excitement, they want to get on board. And so when we create the clarity, people can then see the specific benchmarks or the specific checklist items that they're responsible for and can actually accomplish. One other reason why I love getting everyone on the same page with the mission is that now we know who's doing what, right? And in that, we can share our collective resources, our collective knowledge. As we work together, we can lean on each other. We can share burdens. And a thing I like to describe it as is decreased volatility. I have seen many programs operate next to each other, right? Maybe similar missions, but when they start to look at each other and say, wow, we do have very similar missions, we do have very similar goals, they can start working in partnership, right? So I've seen that at the organization level. And the volatility, one very important way in which volatility is decreased is if one of the players drops out, that the rest of the stakeholders, they're not left in the lurch. There are other people who are there, other programs, other organizations who are there who can kind of help them along the way, even if somebody leaves the program. So as I mentioned earlier, if I had 4 organizations doing similar work in the school district that I worked with, there were 4 mentoring agencies, mentoring or homework help. And at first they just worked in silos, side by side as separate programs. But once they started to coordinate their efforts, they were able to leverage each other's resources differently and say, oh, why don't you focus on the mentorship side and I focus on the homework help side, right? So they were able to share the resources and actually get more out of the same resources. But if you are not working across multiple organizations, maybe you're working within just an organization or a team. We all know that if somebody leaves their job, it can be scary, right? It can create a vacuum, a gap. And so having people that all understand the broad mission, but also the specific responsibilities that people have in getting to that mission success, that if somebody leaves, they're not the only one who knows that piece of information, right? We're working as a team. And so I found that teams who understand working together in the shared goal, shared missions with clear communication, if something changes or is unexpected or somebody leaves, there is decreased volatility. And let me tell you that even the naysayers will come around. I've worked on a lot of specific projects or collaborations, but there's maybe 1 or 2 people who just are not as on board, not as bought in. And it's important that we give them the space to do that and not get angry at them, right? There's probably a reason why this just isn't their jam right now, right? It could be from their own personal experience. It could be they have too much on their plate, but let them participate in a way that makes sense. And when they see that things are going well, oftentimes they come around and they want to join, or it further shows that this is not a priority for them and they gracefully leave. But when I see things start to grow and come to fruition, I've seen multiple times where resources start to follow. And so if we're working with people, where the second part of the seminar comes in, our voice, we have a responsibility to exercise our voice and to share the good work that we are doing. And when we do that, others want to get on board. And when others get on board, that's more people power, that's more buy-in, right? That's more support. And sometimes that comes as financial support too. I have received a couple of calls from funders before who have said, hey, Julie, I read that you were doing this amazing project. We actually found 75,000 in our budget left over. Do you think you could use it? Right? Of course, the group that I worked with found a way to use that money. But it was really wonderful to know that we didn't have to ask. It's other people seeing the good work that we were doing. So this work is not always easy. There's a lot of ups and downs, right? With running any organization, we're working with people. And so I wanted you to know that even when things are tough, to kind of remember this image, remember that it's a ripple effect. It's a slow process that we are managing people through, but the ripple effects are so exciting. The potential is so large, and that we are just, drops in the water or seeds in the ground, kind of planting those seeds to be able to help foster a stronger organization and community. Now, because managing people and projects are not always easy, right? Keeping us vision and mission aligned are not always easy. I wanted to present to you 3 ways in which you can help yourself and your team assess where you should focus your efforts to be able to do better work. So the 3 P's of success are purpose, people, and process. Purpose, not assuming that everybody knows why you are there and what you are trying to specifically accomplish. What's the long-term vision and what are the more immediate term goals and how will you get there, right? So we'll talk about that in the next slide. When I refer to people, I'm not just talking about the people on your team, but to think about, other than the people on your team, are there other stakeholders that could be informative or impacted by the work that we do, right? So I'm thinking more broadly in terms of stakeholders and just making sure that the right people are engaged at the right time right? And have clarity in terms of how they contribute to the effort. So we'll talk about people more and specific tools for managing that in a bit. And then finally, the last P is process. So that clarity word that I used earlier, helping folks who are working through, complex team dynamics, gain clarity in terms of how you will work together. What structure are we working within? Who's the decision maker, right? How will we communicate with each other? These are the operational systems that help people know how to work together. And that also takes time to determine what your needs are and how to build that out. So we'll circle back to that later in this session. But the first P is purpose. And under purpose, as I mentioned earlier, you want to start with vision. It's never too late to have a visioning session. A lot of groups think that, oh, we've been operating for so long this way, like it's okay. We all have a sense of the vision. But let me tell you, so many organizations that I work with, if I ask 5 people, what is the ultimate vision that you are trying to achieve? I will receive 5 different responses. So it is a helpful exercise to ask folks, what is your ultimate vision for this organization or for this cause or for this initiative? Because if you are all operating, like aligning with different stars, you're going to be going down different paths, and things will, at some point, miscommunication is going to happen, right? We're operating on assumptions. It is so important that you take the time to identify the ultimate North Star, right? Where everybody has a chance to share their vision, but then you come together as a group to decide what is our ultimate vision, and making sure that internal and external stakeholders understand that. Next, you would take that and say, what is our unique role in achieving that vision? And what do we want to accomplish? For many organizations, they're looking at the next 5 to 7 or 10 years. What can our organization do to help with these efforts? And so you want to build out a mission that is short and succinct, right? But that has specifics that makes it unique. So it's not too generic. And that every, 5 or 7 years or so, an organization might update their mission to make sure that it is still relevant. And that you're aligning all of your resources under this mission. What that also means is you are not having mission drift, right? One problem we have as community caretakers is that we want to serve. We want to make sure that the people that we're working with and that we're serving, their needs are met. And so it can be hard for us to say no. And so having a clear mission and making sure that we know what our specific goals are and how we are going to use our resources allows us to stay more disciplined and focused. And if we do get opportunities that are kind of outside of those goals, we can then take a moment to say, is this something we want to pursue, even if it's going to divert resources away from our original goals, or do we stay the course, right? Without putting something on paper, right? Not just the mission, but the goals and the resources, how would you know to come back to be able to say, we need to make adjustments, right? So taking the time to clarify things and put it on paper will allow you in the future to come back and decide if you want to pivot. And so in terms of determining your purpose, there are a few tools that can be very helpful to make sure you're setting a good, realistic purpose. That is data collection. So usually there's a data collection phase, either when you're planning or when you're assessing. And so these are the 3 data gathering lenses I like to use. The first one is resources. What resources are already here? Not just your internal resources, but also in the community. Are there other organizations doing similar work as you, right? And are families or who you are serving going to utilize those resources, right? Some people may call it competitors analysis. I like to call it a market analysis or a landscape analysis. But ultimately, it's about what other resources are available to the people that you serve And maybe there are funding resources or policies coming down the pipeline that may be able to contribute funding or support to your efforts. So every so often, it's important to get our heads out of the sand and really look at our landscape and to see, what other opportunities people have or resources we could tap into and learn from. The second one are needs. And I think I can cover needs and resources together. Many organizations know it's important to have a needs analysis or assessment. What are the community needs? What does the data show? What evolution of demographics do we have? Sometimes we may have started our efforts thinking the most important mission is this, right? This is the high needs. Maybe it was we realized that people are not healthy and need to exercise more. But as we work with the families, maybe you realize it's really not just about exercise, it's also about nutrition and access to healthy foods. And then you realize, wow, the needs are more diverse and complex than you originally thought, right? This is all really helpful data to have as you continue to plan and align resources towards an ultimate mission and vision. So that's a needs assessment. Now, where organizations often fall short is that they stop there. And so they'll build out a totally new program to now address nutrition. And so maybe they'll create a cooking class, right? Or a nutrition class. And then they open it and it's confusing because nobody's attending. Even though people said this is a need in our community, they're not utilizing the resources. So where's the disconnect? And the disconnect could have been preempted by doing a readiness check-in, or what I like to call a readiness assessment. So the readiness assessment is a check-in with the people that you are serving, right? The end users, even your staff, right? Or your volunteers can give you insight into the readiness of an organization, of a community, of the client, right? The people that you're serving. Are they even ready for this particular project or service or initiative, right? Is it framed in a way that is enticing to them, in a way that will encourage them to participate, right? And so I have had to learn it the wrong way, right? I have, in fact, in my earlier days when I was younger, launched programs that are excellent, but didn't attract the right people, right? It was a teen program and teenagers were not participating, right? And so we had to go back. And in our case, what we realized is teen readiness really depends on teens helping other teens. So when we invited teens to help us design the programs, those programs were by far more successful at attracting other teens to participate. So I hope that's helpful for you in terms of thinking about data in those ways. What resources are here? So resource mapping, what needs are in our community, needs assessments, and finally, taking a little time to do a readiness assessment to make sure that what you're developing will in fact be utilized. I know I've said a lot already in just the first half of our seminar so far, but I just wanted to take a pause here to remind you that I'm going to share a lot of different ideas and approaches, but ultimately you need to real size it for your organization. So really think about your organization's ultimate goals and determine what you want to act upon. And you might not be able to do a full-fledged resource needs readiness assessment, right? All three types of assessments, but maybe you can do a truncated version, right? And a smaller version just to answer specific questions you may have. That is okay too, right? I want you to set up your teams for success, right? And so challenge yourself, try something new, but don't try to chew it off all at once, right? Don't bite off more than you can chew all at once. So I wanted to make sure that that assumption I tackle before we get too far. I've mentioned before that it's really helpful to have alignment, not just on where you're going, but how you're going to get there. And so if you don't have one yet, a strategic plan can be very helpful. In our nonprofit social benefit sector, many organizations have strategic plans, And many donors and funders or contracts expect a version of a strategic plan. This is something that is clearly on paper that outlines what you're trying to do, how you're going to get there, and by when, right? What are the specific priorities and the specific benchmarks? And for it to help you manage and make that happen, how are you going to do that, right? Who will be responsible for each of those benchmarks? What is the timeline? Are you going to accomplish this by Q2 or in a year or in 18 months, right? Many strategic plans are about 18 months to 3 years timeline. If kind of during the pandemic and since we're still kind of on the heels of this pandemic, I am seeing like shorter strategic plans. Let's just figure out what we're going to do in the next couple of years. But on the flip side, I've also seen agencies say, okay, we've been waiting long enough. We've had like 2 years of uncertainty, but now things are opening back up, and let's come back together to really reset. Think about everything we've learned over the last couple of years. And this is our opportunity to try something different. And I have seen many organizations kind of change their mission and purpose. It's very exciting. And think differently, think bigger, and make pivots. So I've seen both sides. I can't tell you one is better than the other or one is correct and one's not. Really depends on your organization and what would be the most helpful and which plan you would actually utilize. Is it an 18-month plan, a 2-year plan, a 5-year plan, any longer? And it would probably be not a very clear plan because the world changes so regularly these days, right? So the industry standard is 3 years, but because of uncertainties, I have seen shorter 18-month or 2-year plans. Now, the final thing with purpose is don't forget to put on your marketing communications hat. Message it for internal and external audiences. So many times we go through a fun, rigorous process to clarify the vision, the mission, the plan, but then we forget to share it with the people that we engaged originally, right? If we went to them to collect data to tell us more about what they want, make sure you go back to them and you let them know, based on your input, these are the results. And they are so happy to be a part of that. And then you have immediate stakeholder buy-in. It's a real wonderful way to jumpstart buy-in. In the past, people would think, oh, let's put together a plan and then tell the world, right? And then you're trying to convince them after the fact. Strategic plans today and kind of that joint visioning and mission development, use it as an excuse to engage people, right? And through that process, they'll be organically bought in because they're part of the process, right? So I think we can all relate to that if we're part of the process, naturally we feel more closer to it and bought into it earlier on. And then that external stakeholders, sharing that with people, even if it seems like you don't know exactly how you're going to get there, it's okay. I think in today's world, especially with funders, like foundation funders or corporate funders, and even donors, individual donors, they kind of want to know some of the behind the scenes. So paint them that ultimate vision, that North Star, let them know what your updated mission is, and then say, here are some of our priority goals. And that it might not be fully funded, but these are the things that you are looking to accomplish. And it's their opportunity to say, that sounds interesting. Is that something I could help you make come to fruition, right? Maybe I can fund it. Maybe I can make a connection for you. It used to be where organizations would wait until everything is clearly mapped out before telling external stakeholders. But in today's communication world, people want to feel like they're part of the process, that they're partners with you, even in the development phase. So hopefully that's helpful. In this session, I will share kind of how some of the trends are changing over time. So the tool that I wanted to share for aligning purpose is a logic model. So this, you can already see, covers a lot of what I've already discussed, right? On the top there, putting your mission and vision up there, but then helping you think through what resources it would take to accomplish the activities and the outputs that you're hoping to engage in so that you can reach your ultimate outcomes, right? So you can see that this is how a logic model actually lays that out for you in a pretty clear way. And we usually do this by project or by initiative. If you are an organization, you might have multiple projects, multiple logic models, and when you condense them together, they become your organization's logic model. One important note that not all logic model instructors will tell you, but is something that I think is very important, is that I encourage you to do planning backwards. So start with your ultimate outcomes. What is the change you're looking to see in the community? Are you trying to change people's income levels? Are you trying to change their health outcomes? Are you trying to increase confidence of youth, right? What are those ultimate outcomes? Then you can determine what kind of activities, programs, services do we need to provide to be able to help achieve these outcomes. So then you would prioritize the activities that would help you get there. The metrics, which is the second side of the blue frame, are how you will measure success. So how many programs will you have? How many sessions? How many people? Right? Those are the measurable metrics. And then based on that scale, right? Are you doing a lot of seminars, a few seminars? Are you ramping up, ramping down? Is it 2 sets of programs or 10, right? Then you can map out what resources would it take to get you there and work backwards. Now, when you get to resources, this is your chance to do what I said earlier, to real size, right? Wow, to do 10 programs, we realize the resources would require just too many resources for us to accomplish all of this in 1 year. So you may want to go and update this logic model and say, we can only do about 50% of what we were hoping to accomplish this year. And so you would adjust your logic model accordingly before finalizing it. So make sure you real size it before you finalize it. And again, working backwards allows you to make sure that you're planning things based on your ultimate goals and not just based on the current resources or the current activities you have. It's too easy for us to just fall back into the same mission, into the same programs and activities. This type of planning is your opportunity to hit the pause button once in a while and just say, is this still relevant? Is this approach still what we want to do? And maybe it is. And now you'll have it on paper and say, this is still what we want to accomplish over the next year or 3, right? And then so on the bottom there, you see planning goes from right to left, it works backwards. One gift I want to give you, which I'm excited about, is that this logic model, this tool, is also your evaluation plan. A lot of times organizations, they get very concerned or frustrated by like, how am I supposed to evaluate what I'm doing, right? These reports are asking for evaluation plans, or somebody in my organization is asking me to evaluate what we're doing. What do they mean by that? And so I want to share that putting your plan into a structure like a logic model like this, you'd by default have your evaluation plan. And all you have to do is work from left to right. So knowing you're kicking off this year with trying to gather the adequate resources that you need, right? Staffing, maybe it's transportation needs, maybe it's facilities, right? Or curriculum, whatever it is you need, you can evaluate, did you gather the necessary resources, right? And if you did, were you able to, you move on to the next part of evaluation, were you able to execute on the activities at the metrics that you had set forth to do. If you didn't, let's adjust, right? Evaluation is to find out what worked and what didn't work and adjust. And then ultimately, did that help us make progress towards our ultimate goals? And usually people are evaluating short, midterm, and long-term goals, right? Short-term might be immediately following your program. What did the participants say that they learned or gained from the experience? That's a very short-term measure. Midterm might be following up with them in 6 months or a year to say, did it stick, right? Did they continue to eat healthy? And then long-term, you might want to measure their actual health metrics, right? So body mass index or blood pressure. I'm not a healthcare professional, so I would turn to the nurses to help us and the doctors to help us identify health outcome metrics. But you should have them, those long-term metrics. So then you're evaluating your program long-term. So there it is. Whether or not you've used a logic model before and how much you liked or didn't like it before, hopefully you are now very much excited and open to using a logic model. And this is probably one of the best tools that I've used. If your organization has used it in the past and didn't find it very helpful, and some people are against it, I've worked with many organizations who feel that way, don't call it a logic model, right? Just it's program or organizational planning. And I think putting things on one page that's visually friendly can help everyone see how we're working together. So people and process are the next two steps related to aligning our mission, right? So under purpose, we gained a lot of clarity on mission. Now it's reminding ourselves, do we have the right people on the bus? And so one way I want to help you think about this is, what type of impact are you hoping to accomplish? Are you working on a specific project? Are you working for institutional or an organizational level change? Are you working across multiple projects, multiple organizations, and building kind of like a coalition, right? Or are you taking all of that learning and trying to apply it and share it with outside agencies, institutions, maybe other states, right? And helping to make it policy so that it lives on with many other stakeholders and players and organizations into the future, right? Policy level, sector change. So knowing that level should help you hone in on what type of people do we need at the table. And so that's the spectrum of impact. Many times when I work with community groups, we are so excited when projects kick off, or at any time really, to have more people engaged. And we measure success by that, by number of people engaged. But we're not able to sustain their engagement, right? We might have community meetings that just meet regularly and kind of lose steam, right? They lose momentum because they're not quite sure what they're doing together and who's responsible for what. And so understanding the purpose of your group and the level of impact you're trying to achieve can help you get the right people at the table at that time. And over time, your group might evolve and have different needs. And so you might need different people, and that is okay, right? And so here I have a couple notes. Allow for graceful exits. If you're noticing somebody is not as engaged with your project, maybe they're not as mission aligned at this time, and talk to them, have an honest conversation of what would keep them on board, or maybe this just isn't a right fit. It's not a priority for them or their organization. And so allow them a graceful exit and that the door is open for them to come back when the time is right, right? And so understanding their priorities. So, and then two other tips in terms of leading people. Remember that our world is filled with people who either like competence or charisma. We gravitate towards, the people naturally will gravitate towards one or the other. And so think about your own preference. When you're working on an initiative, do you need somebody with lots of competence, with lots of data, right? and you're always wondering what their history is that makes them equipped, qualified to do this work? Or are you someone who is very much about charisma, who wants to see that broader vision, who is very excited about that potential, even though you don't know the specifics? That's okay, right? That you want to follow that visionary, and that person is a people person. They pull you along. They understand what it takes to get everybody excited and engaged, right? So I think in the workforce, as we mature and as we work in different situations, sometimes we know to be somebody that brings more competence, more data, and then and other times we need to bring more of our social visionary skills. That's charisma, right? But I want you to take a moment after the seminar to think about what's most natural to you, because that's how you will naturally show up in the world. And depending on the group and the people that you are working with, they may be similar to you or they may be different from you. If they are similar to you, building trust will be very easy, very natural. If they are different from you, naturally they're going to require other information, right? So you might need to take extra effort to build rapport, build trust with them. And that hopefully understanding that difference now lets you see it's usually not actually personal. If I'm somebody who's about vision and I'm talking to somebody who's all about competence and wanting data, all of their questions may cause me to think, are they not on board? Do they not trust me and my leadership? That's actually not the case. They are asking questions because they care. And so I really want to share this to help you see that most of these miscommunications, misunderstanding, these frustrations are actually not personal. It's just that we come from different cultures, different ways of working. And so hopefully this is a tool that will help you better navigate how you work with others and teams. So individual people have preferences, and then teams usually have a specific style as well. And that one theme I wanted to leave this last bullet is, I am noticing more and more organizations be more thoughtful about how they develop people so that they can stay steadfast in this work. So because we are mission-driven organizations, we oftentimes bank on people just caring so much about the mission that they'll stay forever. And what we're finding is, yes, that is very important, right? And so those regular reminders of how we are impacting the mission are very important. And this generation of professionals, they want to see how their careers are developing and be able to identify specific skills that they are gaining to be able to continue to contribute to the mission. So if they don't have that, they tend to want to look elsewhere, right? So I just want to make that quick note that keeping mission aligned with today's professionals and today's even volunteers, they want clarity on what skills are they learning and be able to reflect on that and know that they are continuing to ramp up their careers or their professional toolkits. So as I've mentioned before, managing people is always interesting. It's complex. And so just give yourself some grace, actually. Know that when you're forming a group, people are usually on a high note, they're excited. But then when the real work comes in, you're going to go into a storming phase. That is totally normal and should be expected. If you don't go through a storming phase, you're probably not managing anything all that complex, right? That things are pretty much the same, not changing all that much. But if there are things that are being built, developed, changing, challenging a group, right? You're naturally going to go into a storming phase where you have to make decisions and manage different expectations. But once you come out of that, you're going to be even stronger than when you started. You're going to go through a normalization phase. How are we going to work together? What are our systems and processes? What are the expectations? And when all those are clear, you become more and more of a well-oiled engine and you get to high performing. So again, just a natural part of every group's trajectory And sometimes it goes up and down and up and down, or even around, right? I've seen other visualizations that are more cyclical. And eventually you might have to go through a conversation where you are rebirthing or adjourning your project or your organization. So remember this chart whenever you're feeling like, ooh, we're a little stuck. What's happening here? And you can remind the group, this is natural, okay, to any group. And that you can then take your group and say, maybe one of our 3 Ps are off. Maybe purpose isn't as clear. Maybe the people are not aligned, or the right people are at the table with clear roles, or maybe our processes need to be clarified. So in our last few minutes here, let's jump to process. So process is how you operate, how you manage the people that you're working with, and that alignment towards your mission and ultimate vision. So what is the structure? What is the staffing? How many staff or volunteers, or even your board, right? This is about the people that are involved, but more importantly, how many and what their roles are, right? And maybe what the communication channels are. So how regular are the meetings? Are there clear meeting agendas? Who's running the meetings? Who's contributing to the meetings? Are they active meetings that are really helping to get people's involvement? Or are they just sitting and listening the whole time? How do you fund all of this, right? What are who's in charge of managing all the resources and bringing in the resources? Who are the ultimate decision makers? In some projects that I've worked with, it's very important that early on, you have the top decision makers in that room. But as they make decisions and start to move towards implementation of programs, they may then step back and then have other program staff step in. So again, remember, earlier we were talking about which phase of impact are you trying to address. If you're talking about high level strategy, you might need the decision makers, but if you're talking about program implementation, then you probably need program staff. And so again, not all people have to be at all tables all the time. Going back to that logic model, what activities is this group or team going to do to help you meet that mission? Put it on paper, make it clear. Do not assume, right, what the project is, and very clear what the scope is, how many, how often, how much, right? So that people know what they're working towards. And then have those regular check-ins with the individuals, maybe post an event, like debriefing an event, and evaluating on a regular basis, whether it's quarterly or semi-annually, absolutely annually. And don't forget to celebrate the little wins, the big wins. People love celebrating the end goal, but I actually think there's a lot more learning that can be had when we celebrate the interim goals, and be specific about what you are celebrating. What is it specifically, right? The process that made this successful. So just saying, congratulations, we had a great event, is wonderful and fun, but it doesn't help people learn about what they did so well to help us meet our mission. So the celebration and the thank yous should be as specific as possible. So thank you so much, Joan, for managing the budget so clearly and helping us stay on target this year. The first year ever, we are in the black, right? And so being specific helps people know, oh, this is what I did well and what I should do more of in the future, right? It's about clarifying those expectations. And then share, I mentioned multiple times, internal, external, because again, some organizations, they tend to look at just internal or just external. Make sure that you're always looking at both, and that what information do we want to celebrate and share internally, and what do we want to celebrate and share externally. So this is nearing the end of the seminar, at least this part of the 3 Ps. And I want you to think, is it people, purpose, or process? Which of the 3 Ps do you want to work on? And I look forward to hearing your progress as you go back to your organizations and align your missions using the 3 Ps these keys to success. So before we leave, I wanted to provide a few more slides that emphasize how we can amplify our voice. Actually, doing everything that I've talked about so far will naturally amplify your voice. And that is because when you engage people in the planning process, in mapping out how you will meet your mission, now you have so many ambassadors, right? Who is an ambassador? It's everyone that's involved who believes in the cause, right? So anyone that you've engaged in the process thus far, they are your ambassadors. And so a lot of times when we think about amplifying our voice, people get very nervous because they think it's their own responsibility. And so right off the bat here, I want to let you know, it is not just your responsibility, but what you've done in terms of leading and managing a group of people to become more mission aligned, you are creating a whole set of ambassadors. And so they'll be excited to share, they'll naturally share. And what you can do is equip them to be better at sharing. And so let's talk about a couple of tools that will help you through this process. And so in amplifying your voice, here are a few keys to success. The first one is a reminder that it takes 7 to 10 touch points to see impact. It sounds like a lot, but it actually is not a lot. So what it means is anybody who engages with you and your mission will need about 7 to 10 touch points to feel compelled to act. And this can be as small as seeing your name pop up in a social media post, right, on LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram. It can be hearing a board member mention your organization, or their child at school taking a flyer home and they see your logo on it. So any 7 to 10 touch points. Oh, emails, right? And so if you think about all of the different ways in which you can show up in people's lives, whether it's picking up the phone, inviting them to an event, sending them an email, having social media posts on a regular basis, over time, they will naturally reach 7 to 10 touch points. And so if you're engaging with them a lot, it might only take you a few weeks, right? For me, I always say minimum 6 weeks. But for other folks, depending on what the action you're trying to take, it might take multiple months or years. They say a major donor, to be able to reach a major donor, can take 7 years, right? So it does depend. It ranges a lot, but those major donors, those 7 to 10 touch points are totally different, right? That's taking them out to lunch, right? That's cultivating a much deeper relationship. For today's seminar, I'm talking about quicker, smaller touch points, just staying top of mind for people, so that when you send your next fundraising letter, or when you send them an email that celebrates the graduating class of your program, they feel really compelled to donate or to attend, right? Or at least to congratulate you, right? So, okay, here are ways in which to do that well. Identity. You know your brand, you know your organization, you know your mission, okay? And the good work that you do. Do not doubt that, okay? And take some time to figure out what is the summary of your brand. What are 3 to 5 words, right? Ideally 3, that really succinctly share what you are all about, right? What is your identity? And continually come back to those themes over and over and over. That consistency will allow people to start remembering you and noticing you. These are other important targets or keys are: target, know and understand your audience. Again, not trying to speak to the entire world. Who are the priority people that you are trying to reach, right? And then focus. Where are they? Are they on Twitter? Are they at a church meeting? Are they hanging out in the backyard of a community block party, right? Where are they? Where can we find them? And where can we have a presence? as you continue to get to connect with them, start to entice them, share the good work you are doing, right? Celebrate with you, and eventually invite them in small ways to engage. Even asking them, their perspectives on a theme that you're working on. Maybe you are a youth program and you're talking about courage. Having them respond to you online about how they define courage would be a great action, a first step for them to take. Be a resource for them, right? Engaging them, allowing them to see that they can come to you to ask questions, to be a resource. We call that thought leadership, increasing you as to be seen as a thought leader. And again, if you keep hitting on the same themes and topics, people will start to notice and know to come to you for those things. So finally, as a repeat, again, don't be afraid on saying the right thing specifically or scripting out every post perfectly, or if you're public speaking, to have every single word scripted out. You know your work. You know why you are passionate about this. Just share from the heart, and like geek out on the topic. Get excited about why you do this work. When you are excited and you believe in it, other people will feel that. And so it just, this is one slide just to show one example that for me, I work with a lot of organizations on strategy. So I need to reach the executive decision makers, the board members, the executive leaders. And so LinkedIn has most of the organizations and their executive leaders. So for me, I would choose LinkedIn. But for you, you might want to choose a different platform, right? I'm working with another youth organization who wants to reach parents. So they've decided they're going to use text messaging, right? So there's so many platforms nowadays. Other people are using online messaging apps like Slack channels, right? So there's a lot. So really going back to the slide before, who are you trying to communicate with, and where can you best do that? This is a slide just to give you a little homework as we wrap up here, is try to take the next step to reach more of those 7 to 10. You're not going to get to 7 to 10 touch points right away, right? Just start with a few, and over time you'll get to 7 to 10. But like, make sure your profile, your identity, your website is using those keywords that really exemplify who you want to be seen as and what your mission is all about and what you're trying to accomplish, right? Put yourself out there, write, share information about those themes, write original posts, teach or present online, right? I'm doing a video seminar right now. Just take one step to try something new, something different. You don't need to do all of it, right? It would be too much for you to try and commit to doing all of this. Some marketing people would say, do all of this every day. That to me just sets yourself for failure. So bite off, just that next step, not too much, and be able to learn from it and celebrate some small wins first. And then eventually you can build out a whole complex plan to be able to really amplify your mission on a really regular basis, right? So that's called a content calendar, right? You would be putting out specific themes on a regular basis on the channels that you choose, the platforms that you choose. Let's see, what else to connect with your internal and external stakeholders. Again, always reminding internal, external. Too many organizations only focus on one side. And I know it's so convenient to connect online, but those offline connections are also still very valuable and perhaps even more impactful because it's more rare these days. So you don't need to do it with everyone, but prioritize, right? Who are the highest level priority people that you want to stay engaged with and want to support your work? You can reach out to them and have offline conversations, even a phone call or a Zoom. Zoom is okay too. Zoom is like a live chat, right? So that works too. And then remember, it's all about building relationships first. Do not sit down and just sell your mission, give a laundry list of all your programs, make it all about you. It's a two-way street, right? So sit down, get to know them, understand what brought them here in the first place. Why are they engaged with your mission? What are they hoping to learn or accomplish? What are their goals, right? And see where there's alignment and be genuinely interested in them, right? And then authenticity, like they just want to get to know you as a person, and like, and then if there's that connection, all of the hard work will come. You'll want to tackle that together. And so people these days, they want to know, what is some of that hard work? What's happening behind the scenes? What are some very short stories that you can tell and share? We call them micro stories that just give a little bit of insight into what it's like, the day in the life of, right? Not even a day in the life of, that's too big. Maybe it's just, what is it like to lead a meeting, right? So there are so many stories, so many things you can share nowadays. And um, the amplifying your voice and marketing has changed, just even the last 5-7 years. We used to have very clear, specific marketing strategies. We have that still, but in the social media world and in the kind of networking world, we're seeing more sharing about what's behind the scenes, right? Making it, we're all in this together, we're all learning together. People really find that endearing, and they feel more close to you, right? Like you're a friend telling them about what it's like to work on this mission. So thank you so much for joining us today. Hopefully there were a couple of ideas that sparked your interest. I'm curious, what next steps will you take? I am really looking forward to joining you for the live Q&A session, where you can share some of your ideas and takeaways or ask me questions. You can also find me online at LinkedIn or Instagram, or at my website, leadershipsavvy.org. Online, I am just type in Julie Ha Truong, LinkedIn or Instagram, and you will find me. So looking forward to connect, and thank you for taking the time here with me today. We'll see you at the live Q&A session.